With that wonderful music in the background, I feel like saying, may the force be with you, and especially with you today, Steve. This is a great moment for the college, and it's a great moment especially for Dr. Stephen Bridge. The Cultural Affairs Committee of the Faculty Senate is very happy to co-sponsor this event, and also there'll be another event later tonight at 7 o'clock. If any of you hear things that intrigue you about this presentation and you'd like to grab a couple of your friends and come back at 7 o'clock, I'm sure Steve would charge you the same admission as you've been charged already. So, the Cultural Affairs programs, this is the final program of the fall. We have 5 new programs coming up in the spring, but we're particularly happy to support one of our own. And I think with the presentation today, you're going to see the efforts of 2 or more years of hard labor, due in part to a sabbatical leave, I think. It would have been impossible to do without. So we're very happy to the college to provide these sabbatical leaves for faculty members to do research, in this particular case, outside of his own field of expertise. So we're very proud of Steve, and I'm sure you are too, so a warm welcome to Stephen Bridge.
Thanks, Mike. First of all, just thank you for being here. As Mike mentioned, this is the first of 2 presentations. The other one will be at 7 o'clock. Those of you who are my students and here for extra credit, you don't get double extra credit if you come to the 7 o'clock. Just so you're clear on that. This is a momentous moment in the college's history, and I'm excited and I'm honored to be here and share with you a project that I've been working on for the last 3 years, but working on very much under the radar, and you'll understand why as we go on. What this presentation is about is about a history of the campus, not necessarily the college per se, but the history of our campus. And let me go over that with you. So I can. Okay. So when I was younger, history classes did not really excite me. Sorry, Mike. Lots of dates, lots of names, kind of irrelevant. So a brief history of the campus to make it a little more fun and accessible, made really simple. What I want you to do, when you think about the history of the campus, I want you to think of a s'more. Isn't that nice? Everybody loves s'mores, right? So you've got the graham cracker, you got the chocolate, you got the marshmallow, and then you've got the bottom graham cracker, but I had to make it into a cookie just so it'd be something different so I can talk to you about it. But when you think about the layers of the campus, the historical layers of the campus, I want you to think of a s'more. All right. Okay. So the top layer. This is the college has owned this property more or less since 1955. 1955, we bought it from the Verrill family. Many of you know that the College of St. Joseph's was originally in Portland. It started there in 1912. It eventually outgrew its space, and the sisters were looking for another place to come. Actually, it's a great story of how the sisters ended up here and decided to come here, and the trustees. But that story's already been told. And if you're interested in the history of the college, basically from its beginning to more or less 1980s, this book by Mary Raymond Higgins has an entire chapter devoted to it. Okay. And again, great stories, and I cover a little bit of that intro in my book as well. So we've been here about 60 years. Okay, the college has been here, and again, we bought it from the Verrill family. Okay, so think of the Verrill family as that chocolate layer, the next layer down. Mr. Verrill we bought it from the Verrill family. Okay, so think of the Verrill family as that chocolate layer, the next layer down. Mr. Verrill was a lawyer down in Portland, and this was most of this campus that we see now, this beautiful estate, the sprawling estate. This was his summer home. So he came out here when things got too hectic in Portland. He came out here. So many of the Verrill buildings are still standing today. Xavier Hall, the Stone Chapel, the admissions St. George Hall, the admissions building, and the stone barn across the street. That all dates back to the Verrill era. So again, they were here. He bought properties at different times, but basically from 1905 to 1955. So he had it for 50 years prior to the college buying it. So when the college bought it, the trustees came and the sisters came. When they asked about the history of the college or the history of the campus, these are the stories they got. Okay, and again, these stories have been recorded. Durwood Furland published a little slim book, basically most of it's about the Verrill history and what they did while they were here. So again, that hasn't been the focus of my research because that's already been done. Okay. Then the very bottom is the original founding of Standish. Okay. Standish was originally founded. Moses Pearson was a captain in this battle in Louisburg, and he after the English were successful in defeating this French. It was a fortress basically. He was part of this battle, and he was also one of the clerks inside to handing out the spoils after the battle. So he and his men were there. When they finally got done, they came back. They spent a lot of time. They worked really hard. They faced a lot of threats. They came back, and they just felt like they didn't get much reward for it. So they petitioned the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which was then under the Crown, the English Crown, and said, how about a little something more for the effort? And they said, sure, you can have that. You can have that wilderness area north of Portland, which is our present-day Standish. So they divided the area up, and all this happened between 1745 and 1775. Now, if you're interested in that history, that's been done too. Albert Sears wrote a wonderful book on the founding of Pearson Town, Standish, Maine. So I don't know if you know this, but Standish used to be called Pearson Town. That's where we came up with Pearson's Cafe, right? Okay, after Moses Pearson. So that's been done. So the big question mark, what hasn't been done, is this giant marshmallow in between from 1775 to 1905. There's a big history here that nobody bothered to think about, nobody bothered to ask about. That's 130 years worth of history. That's a lot of history that happened here. I had been here 15, 16 years, and I never knew anything. I thought I knew everything there was to know about the history of this place. And people ask me, so how did this project start? Michael Russell, there he is. So this started actually May 2014. Our farm manager, Mike Russell, it was just after graduation. He was in the cafeteria, sitting with a group of students. I just finished up. I joined him at his table, and he was talking about. He had sent a student worker out to dig a trench over in the farm area, and as the student worker was working, the student worker hit upon some broken bottles, I think a set of eyeglasses, kind of some old stuff, and Mike was talking about it and wondering what else might be out there. So he kind of piqued my curiosity, and so I joined him a little later, and we got to talking, and he said, I want to know about the history of this place. Who had it? Who was used? What was it used for? And I said, well, Mike, the Verrills had it, because that's what I had been taught when I was here. And I told him all about the Verrills, and he's like, no. Who had it before them? And in my 16 years here at the college, I'd never heard anybody ask that question before. Who had it before them? It was always the Verrills. What do you mean, who had it before the Verrills? Well, who did have it before the Verrills? And so that kind of sent me on my quest. And I said, I don't know, but that's a good question. I'll see if I can get some answers for you. 3 years later, Mike, I hope I've got some answers for you. Okay, so these are the two questions that were driving my research. Who specifically was here before us? We have spiritual predecessors. Okay, those are the Sisters of Mercy. Those are the ones that founded the college. They came over from Portland. We know that story very well. Sister Mary George, I don't think is here. She'll probably be at the 7 o'clock maybe. But she's done a great job of promoting that and making sure that we know that as our history. Those are our spiritual predecessors. who are our material predecessors? In whose footsteps are we walking in now? Who is here before us? That was one thing driving my question. And what, if anything, did they leave behind? So this is a two-part project. The first one, to find out who was here before us, that involved a lot of research. Okay, a lot of research. Going through Cumberland County of Deeds, trying to figure out, trying to trace the property records. Now, this gets really difficult and complicated. Well, let's go this way. When we say here, who was here before us? First of all, we have to define who was here. Up here is a map of the current holdings of the campus. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. So the red section is what most people think of when you think of the campus. This is where most of the buildings are, the academic, et cetera, right here. As you know, there's construction going on now with a new turf field right in that area. So most students come in, they spend 4 years here, and as far as the campus goes, that's pretty much what they identify with. Many of you are also aware that we have a farm across the street. That's that area. Most students are not aware, and even many faculty and staff may not be aware that we also own this big section here. There are septic pods back there. There are also two houses, the Honoratus House and Marist Hall, where some of the nuns now live. We did a recent construction there. Okay. But it extends quite a bit down Whitesbridge Road. So most students are not aware of that. And most students, faculty, and staff are not aware that we recently, 3-4 years ago, purchased this section down here, which is really more accessible off of 35. Okay. So altogether we have 474 acres, so just shy of 500 acres. So that's a lot of land. Okay, so that's what the present campus looks like. This is the original proprietors map in 1773, give or take. When they carved out the properties to give them to these soldiers, this is what it looks like. They carved them out in 100-acre blocks, 100-acre units. So this is Standish Neck. Over here is Whitesbridge. Okay, so this is Whitesbridge Road, and it kind of divides right through here. Then it comes down this way. Okay. Now, this was the way it worked. When they originally granted this land, they did the first division of land, and they did it well. It was 35 acres, and they passed it out to people. And when the proprietors got together, they wrote down, okay, John Smith gets Unit 1, and Joe Brown gets Unit 2. All right, and they made a list, and everything was good. When they get to this second division, when they gave these properties away, for some reason, and I don't know why, they didn't write down who got what. They just gave them away, and there was no official record of them, which made my job very difficult. So I couldn't start with, so it started with this person and then went down through the chains. I had to start basically in the middle and work my way backwards. If you put that second map over the first map, this is what you get. This is the result. So the college owns, again, these were originally distributed in 100-acre plots. So the college owns most of, if not all of, 5 100-acre plots. Lot number 64, lot number 63, lot number 51, lot number 52, and lot number 37. So to figure out who was here, I had to figure out who owned those lots. Those were the ones. In the Registry of Deeds, however, they don't say, John Smith got lot number 64. It doesn't say that. You just got to trace it back, by name, by property owner. So it was a little complicated. The other thing is, when these were originally given, they were given as 100-acre lots. As time went on, sometimes it's got really complicated. So the owner might subdivide the lot. He might sell 50 acres to one person and 50 acres to another. Or he might sell 50 acres to one person, 10 acres to one person, 40 acres to another person. And then each of those properties have to be traced individually, because then they would sell other people. Let me give you an example of how complicated this can look. So lot 52, here's the history of lot 52. Yeah. Okay, so each of those initials, that's a property owner. So it starts up here, starts out easy enough, right? They keep it together as 100-acre lot. So this person sells it to this person, Then this person gets the bright idea, oh, let's not keep it together, let's divide it up. So he actually sells 10 acres, this is a 10-acre parcel, and this actually stayed together pretty well. So these 10 acres were sold and passed pretty easily down to here. Okay. H.G. turns out to be Harold Gowan, yes, who we bought that from. But then this gets messy. This gets really complicated really quickly. These lots get subdivided. Sometimes they come back together. You could have six, 7 different owners of the same lot. That's just one lot. I had to trace 5 of them, okay, through all this, 200 plus years. So in the end, I was successful. Persistence paid off, and I was able to get a complete chain of owners for all 5 of our lots. That produced 160 predecessors. 160 prior owners before St. Joe's came into possession of this land. That's a lot of names. That's a lot of people. Now, what I did not know is how incredible some of these people are. It's pretty exciting. So of these, now, again, I've just been doing some research. I've been trying to, obviously I can't research all 160 names. I can't go into, so there's a lot that still needs to be done. But from what I have found so far, our predecessors include lots of farmers, as you might expect, but also authors, poets, lawyers. There's a prominent minister, a merchant mariner, and a surgeon. One Cumberland County sheriff. Not only did a former Cumberland County sheriff own this area, it was the first sheriff of Cumberland County was an owner of the campus. Okay. We have town proprietors. These were people that helped start Standish, helped start Gorham, helped start Portland. They were owners of this place. We have several Harvard graduates that owned this property. One of the founding trustees of Bowdoin College used to own this campus. At least one direct descendant of a prominent Mayflower passenger. Half a dozen Revolutionary War soldiers. Veterans of the War of 1812, the Civil War, Spanish-American War, and World War I. Privates, captains, colonels. 2 agricultural pioneers, one who was generally recognized as this nation's leading agricultural authority at the time. This guy may be my favorite. Of all the people, I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but of all the people that own this place, this guy was something else. He ended up writing, he was a theologian, turns out. He was the second minister of the First Church of Portland. Ended up owning this property, and for his hobby, got into agriculture, and ended up writing the definitive textbook on agriculture in the United States. Everybody bought it. It was incredible. He was considered the leading expert, the leading authority in agriculture in the United States for 50 years because of this book that he wrote. We have 4 state representatives. 4 state representatives have owned property here on the campus. We have 3 district attorneys who formerly owned property. We have 2 U.S. senators who owned property, and 1 Supreme Court justice who formerly. This is our material heritage. This is the heritage of the campus, and this is just some of. This is what I know. There may be others. So we have a very, very rich material heritage as far as former property owners go. Okay, so the second question is, what did they leave behind? Now, obviously, there's some natural the natural elements of the property, the lake shore, the farmland, the woods. Obviously, that's all part of it. There are structural elements that they left behind: houses, the chapel, the barn, the burial grounds. People ask me about the burial grounds. There are three, so far as I know, three cemeteries on campus. And rock walls, obviously, they left behind. But those weren't the things that I had focused on. My focus was on artifacts. What was out there? Was there anything out there? So before I go any further, just a little legal reminder. All right. Any metal detecting, digging, excavating, moving, or removing of natural objects or man-made artifacts, so we'll define these as 50 years or older, on college property requires the express written permission of the college's vice president and chief learning officer. Failure to abide by this policy is illegal and prosecutable under the law. All right. I am sharing this information with you for the sake of the college and for the sake of the well-being of the college. What we don't want is people digging up the college to see what they can find. We want to make sure we can protect these sites. And we want to make sure that we can document them and record them and utilize them for educational purposes. And we also appreciate your help in this regard. If you see people out there, either who don't look like they belong out there with shovels and excavators, let us know. Because as you'll see, there's some stuff to be found. Okay. Okay, so here's the results of my field research. As it turns out, I discovered around a dozen artifact-bearing sites throughout the campus, what I would call artifact-rich sites. And some of those artifacts I brought in today. But my preliminary excavations have yielded literally thousands of artifacts. I've only brought in a very, very small sample of what is there. There was a lot out there. And I have only scratched the surface, honestly. Okay. These artifacts date from the late 1700s all the way to 1955. The ones that I have recovered have been inventoried and categorized according to material type. Material type means categorized according to metal artifacts, glass artifacts, porcelain artifacts, and then miscellaneous. There's a lot of stuff out there. Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay, so what are some examples? Well, here we go. And some of these are in some of the cases in front of you. I thought this was like a beer stein when I first pulled it out. It's actually in good shape. Usually you find these smashed. But the beer stein didn't make sense because it had holes in it. Anybody know what that is? It's really old, I'll tell you that. Any guesses? Why would a beer stein have holes in it? Turns out that's a coffee pot. That's a coffee pot. What it's missing is its spout, but that's where the spout went in, where the holes were, and that would be poured. It's in this case in front of you. It's an old clay pipe. I'm not exactly sure what the 43 stands for. It may well stand for date, which would date this back to 1843. Old thimble. This is a gilt button, a gold-plated button. Again, these things came out of the ground. These things were in the ground at least 100 years. All right, porcelain china. This didn't come out in one piece. I had to glue it back together. All right, it's in there. It's in the case. Egg cup, sterling silver spoon. This stoneware jug. I love this. This is kind of a funny story. So I'm recovering pieces of this thing and, doing my best to recover what I can. In the evening I get back, I'm cleaning up the finds and I'm trying to put this together. It looks pretty good in the picture. This is actually in about 12, 13 pieces, okay? So I get it all back home and there's one piece that's missing. It's complete. I'm missing one piece and I don't know if it's out there or not, right? Because sometimes people are just throwing stuff away because it's broken. So I'm like, this is going to drive me crazy. So what do? I go back out there, and I'm digging. I'm like, it's got to be here somewhere. And sure enough, within about 15, 20 minutes, I found it, brought it home, fit perfectly. It's down here in this little cabinet. It's very satisfying to find the whole thing, get it back together again. Kind of fun. This came out unbroken. These are padlocks, date back to about the Civil War time. This Woods black ink, this is pretty old. This dates to Civil War or really even pre-Civil War time. The top is broken. If the top were not broken, it would be that much more valuable, but it's still in pretty good shape given its age. This goes back to the 20s. This is a makeup case, Charles of the Ritz makeup case, kind of cool. You've got the fork here, Sumner Davis pharmacist. This goes back to 1890. Little porcelain pieces. Yeah, obviously this is a very, very old fork, late 1700s. And then these. So I'm at this excavation site, and I'm a little bummed out, frankly, because some of the excavation sites, they're just dumped. I mean, people just dump stuff, and so when you're recovering it, it's in, sometimes it's broken, but it's usually in pretty decent shape. This particular site that I got these out of, not only did the person dump stuff, but they burned it. There was a large fire, so there's a lot of the glass was melted and fused, and that's so unfortunate, because it would have been some cool stuff to find. And so I'm digging around in this place, and I'm thinking, man, why in the world did they burn? Why didn't they just bury it? Why did they burn it? And then I pull out one of these handguns, and I'm like, if I find bones, I'm out of here, right? So somebody trying to get rid of evidence, right? So brought it back, cleaned it up, was able to get a maker's mark on it, and looked it up. And as it turns out, and they're heavy. I mean, they're cast iron. But as it turns out, these are child's toys. These were from the 1920s, little cap guns. But they feel just like the real thing. So that's one of the really rewarding things that I've experienced about this is, I'll pull something out of the ground, and it's like I have no idea what it is, and then I get to research it and find out, and it expands my knowledge about the stuff. So it's been really rewarding. All right, okay. So what's the best find? All right. Okay. So I unearthed this object about 2 months into the project. It was fairly early on. Some would consider it a national treasure. I'd see what you think. All right, you ready for this? In 1789, we had our first presidential election. The Electoral College back then was unanimous. What a change till today, right? First presidential inauguration of the United States. The unanimous choice of the Electoral College was none other than George Washington. For that event, a series of inaugural buttons were minted to celebrate and commemorate the event. Okay. There's scholarly debate in terms of who minted these. There's good evidence that these were, this is kind of funny, that they were actually minted in England, if you can imagine, and then shipped over here to the United States to sell. But there's scholarly debate about where exactly these were minted. And there are about 2 to 3 dozen known varieties. Let me show you what those varieties look like. Okay. If the internet is a reliable source of information, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. If the internet is to be believed, the leading expert on George Washington buttons is a guy by the name of Robert Silverstein. This is his website, and these are some examples of some of those different Washington inaugural buttons that were minted. So you can see them here. They're beautiful. So there's about 2 to 3 dozen known varieties of these things, and again, they're minted for the inauguration itself. Now, of these 2 to 3 dozen known, okay, this one in particular is special, at least according to Silverstein. According to him, this particular button was only given to those who directly served under Washington himself. Guess which one I found? That's what it looks like when it came out of the ground. Looked kind of dirty, but it cleaned up pretty well. Well, the first thing I had to do was authenticate it. So I drove 1,000 miles to Silverstein and said, can you authenticate this? And he did indeed authenticate it. He does not only authentication, but he does evaluation for not only for private individuals, but for museums and sites. So he spent some time with this and authenticated it. Not only did he authenticate it, but he also graded it in terms of its condition. Okay, he uses a 5-point scale for condition. 5 out of 5 is the best, but the only way you're going to get a 5 out of 5 is if this button is passed down from family to family. In fact, in other words, it never ends up in the ground. Okay, this thing ended up in the ground. Now, because it was in the ground, it's been exposed to the elements. It's 230 years old-ish, somewhere around there. But given the fact that it's been in the ground for that long, it's in remarkably good condition. He gave it a 4 out of 5 as far as the metal platelet itself, and he gave it a 4 out of 5 as far as the strike on it as well. So this is in excellent condition. These are very rare. They're very sought after. They're highly collectible. Occasionally they'll come up on eBay, but they don't last long. There are only, as far as Silverstein's research, there are only maybe 30 of these known, period, in the world. Okay, maybe 30. St. Joe's has one as part of its heritage. So, yeah. So again, I traveled just to get it authenticated and evaluated. Very rare, unusually good condition. Yeah, all right, so here's the question. So the big question is, to who did it belong, right? If these things were only given to someone who directly served under Washington, who was here who directly served under Washington? Well, that drove me back to those 160 names and more research, all right? And who could I find? Who was connected? Who was associated with them? Well, as it turns out, there's not one, there's not two, there are 3 individuals, 3 former owners of St. Joseph campus who are connected to George Washington fairly directly. And their stories are pretty amazing. I'll briefly tell you, the 3. One is a guy whose name is Jedediah Lombard. It was his father who was captured during the Revolutionary War, captured by the English, was on a prison ship, and he and some of his compatriots made a daring escape and actually turned the tables on their captors. They were able to capture their English guards, and once they did that, then they had to march them up to the Union Army, or to the Revolutionary Army. So the nearest point was in New York. This is where Washington was. They marched these guys right into Washington's camp, and Jedediah Lombard stayed on with Washington for a period of time after that. And it's his son then who owned property to the campus. That's one. The second one is the Samuel Dean that I mentioned, who is this well-renowned agricultural authority. He writes this book. It's very well received. They like it so much, Brown University decides to give him an honorary degree in 1790. Also on that list receiving an honorary degree in 1790, George Washington. So he and Washington end up together at the same event. I should mention that back then, when they were selling books, you couldn't just put your book on a table and have people show up and buy it. In order to publish the book, you had to have a list of people who agreed to buy it before they even saw it. And that list would be published in the beginning of the book. I was able to get an original copy of Samuel Dean's book, and in that book, so it's a first edition, in that book is a list of people who bought it. One of the first names on the list, John Adams. So John Adams was George Washington's vice president. So Samuel Dean was very closely connected with Adams and with Washington. Then the third person is Theophilus Bradbury. He's really an interesting character. First lawyer, one of the first lawyers in Portland, ends up, coming here. His story is pretty remarkable, but he ends up doing really well. Moves back down to Massachusetts, is elected senator down there, works his way up, serves under Washington as a senator, and then accepts a post in the Supreme Court. So again, any three of those guys, that button could have gotten passed to. In the book, I lean towards one of them, but I'll let you figure that out. But I guess what I want to stress is that George Washington is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the connections and the paths that this history connects to. We're also connected through our predecessors and through the artifacts to people like John Adams, John Quincy Adams, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Edison, Rudolph Valentino, Babe Ruth, Harvard University, the New York Yankees, the Supreme Court, Maine statehood, Coca-Cola, Moby Dick, go figure, Bowdoin College, Jersey cows, and the Virgin Mary. So how does all this play into our history? Well, it's connected either through our predecessors or through the artifacts that have come out of our material heritage. And in the book, I draw all these connections, and obviously I don't have time to go into all of them now, but that's all information that's in the book. So just as an overview, and there are books back there, and I'm not just trying to plug the book, but just so you know what's in there. The introduction talks a little bit about the history of St. Joseph's College as an institution, and talks a little bit about the history of Standish and its founding. That's in the intro part. And then we do the profiles. I went round and round with my editors on this in terms of how to structure this book, and they felt, you know what, let's put the good stuff up front, make it user-friendly, and so we did that. So in the first section of this book, of these thousands of artifacts, I took a look, which ones have the best backstories, which ones have the coolest backstories, and I profiled 11 of those. So those are right there in the book. Some of them are actually here today. And then same thing. There's 160 predecessors. Do I want to go through all those? No. Here's the best. Here's the best of the best. Here's the best of the 11. Here's their backstories. Here's kind of fun stories about them. That's the next part. So the first half of the book is really more geared towards a popular audience. There's pictures and stuff in there. Then the second part, the second half of the book, is more the research. So this is more for my academic crowd, right? So I included 4 site reports. I told you there were a dozen that I've located. Of those 12, I used 4 of the most representative, and I did comprehensive inventories. Everything that came out of those sites is in there. So you have a good idea of examples of the stuff that is found on campus. And then at the very end of the book, and again, this should be helpful for the future of our institution, I traced the chain of ownerships. So here's all the property owners who owned all 5 of those 100-acre lots, basically from the college all the way back to 1773. So this is our ancestry, so to speak. This is our campus's heritage. So it's pretty comprehensive. And then in the end, I talk about where we go from here, what sort of things we could build on, what sort of work still needs to be done. Again, I've done a lot of work on this, but I consider this kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of this. So for instance, chains of ownership. All I have are the property owners, right? But those property owners had families, right, whose names might not have been on those deeds, and sometimes they had very large families. Those people were here. A lot of them grew up on campus. Who were they? I don't know yet. But if you cross-reference those names with the census data, you can get at that information. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. There's 12 sites that I know about. I've just preliminarily excavated them. They need more work. And who knows, there's maybe far more sites out there that I don't know about. Okay, so there's a lot of work to be done. This is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of this project. Okay, so let me, I'll open time for questions, but let me just acknowledge some people that have really helped us come together. Cultural Affairs Committee, as Mike stated at the beginning, they sponsored this lecture. I appreciate them. And Mike in particular for his help. Not only in helping with this lecture and sponsoring it, but also he served as one of my editors for my book. I called them the Dream Team. So it was Mike, it was Ed Riley, and it was Dan Sheridan. They all helped read the book, read drafts of the book prior to its publication, and they did a good job of keeping this all on the down low before the big reveal here today. I want to acknowledge Sister Mary George O'Toole. It's funny because when I first did the history project, they were like, "Oh, well, have you talked to Sister Mary George?" Well, the first thing I did was talk to Sister Mary George, and she had no idea about any of this stuff, right? I mean, she knows the history of the sisters, but not this place. So, but she's done a great job of preserving the history, our spiritual history, and just want to acknowledge that. Mike Russell, for setting me on this path, for asking the right questions, and giving me something to do for the last 3 years. Camilla, I saw her come in. She's been great. She's helped me. She's been my technical advisor. She's read parts of the book. She's the one and she's been very patient when I run out and come home with covered in dirt and all got stuff all over the kitchen table. And yeah, she's been very patient. But she's been a great cheerleader and really encouraging and very supportive through this whole process. And our president, Jim DeLugos, who, when I first started finding this stuff, especially some of the big ticket items, I felt like the college really needed to know, and I let Jim know. Jim was excited. He immediately suggested, you should publish this stuff, and so that got me thinking, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and putting it into a book form. He was also a proponent of not just publishing it, but having the college publish it. So the book is not just a book, but it's the launch of our St. Joseph's College Press imprint, and I think it came out pretty well. Came out really nice. So I want to thank him for his encouragement and his support. Michael Pardellis has helped me with some of the legal stuff, boilerplates, and getting some of the stuff. When you launch an imprint, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that has to go on, and he's been very instrumental in that. And then I wanted to acknowledge Patricia Erickson. There you are, good. And Joanne Bean for helping with some of the publicity for some of this too. Okay. So I do want to take questions, but I also want to acknowledge, so the book is in the back, the campus bookstore personnel are here. They're ready to take your money. They're ready, they'll even accept credit cards, which is kind of cool. So that'll be available if people are interested, they can certainly purchase it here. This is also now available on Amazon.com, and I think it makes great Christmas presents, right? Christmas coming up. Yeah, exactly. For the St. Joe monk in your life, yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your patience and your attendance today. There's books up there if you want. Thank you, Michael. Oh, I almost forgot. So there's a bunch of artifacts up here. I think Skip's going to change the lights over so that they're a little more focused on these. Feel free to come up and take a look, see some of the stuff, and books are in the back.